Right, evening everybody. Chairs creaking again. So, Saturday, 17th of September. I know I did a couple last night, but I've decided to do a couple tonight as well, just to really get myself a little bit ahead, because my wife is due to give birth in, well, due date is in about 3 weeks' time. So pretty much from any time now, it could happen. It is literally like a, hey, pull my finger and a baby will pop out, that sort of thing we're at now. So it's, I just want to give myself a few ahead, like 2 or 3 ahead on a day-by-day basis, just so that if something does happen and everything goes absolutely mental over a course of a day or two, I know that I've got sort of a few in the bank, as it were, to kind of get myself going before I then have to readjust and figure out when on earth I'm going to be doing these videos. So, first one of the night tonight, 2, is Bheag, not teabag, although many people in the whiskey industry and whiskey retail particularly call it teabag, because it's a lot easier to say, but it is pronounced, even though it's T-E-B-H-E-A-G, Bheag, because this is Gaelic, and it's actually the Gaelic Whisky Company. Now, here is the name of the company, the Gaelic Whisky Company. Now, I'll let you into a little secret. I've actually done another video way back when, in advance. I say way back when, it was after I started the challenge, but I did a couple. If you see my Valentine's video, you know I did that fairly early on, and then I actually uploaded it while I was coming back off holiday from Florida, because there was no chance I was going to be able to get any video up and recorded or anything like that. And I have another one in the bank, which is another whiskey from this company called Pochgoo. And I did this fairly early on. It would, if I'd have uploaded it at the time, it would have been like Dram 30 or 40 or something like that. It was really early on, and I've still got it essentially saved as a backup jam. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it into the mix when I do my vatted malts, which is just after I do the blends. I think I've got 2 blends after these 2, and then I'm into vatted malts, and I think I'm going to put it into that, and I'll be even further ahead to give myself a bit more of a buffer, just in case something does go wrong, I get ill, whatever. In that video, when that eventually comes up, which will obviously be after this one, in that video, I hazard a guess as to what, and I'll put it back up, that name is, because that's the name of the company. And at the time, I think I tried to figure out that it's probably something like Pravanalan, because it's Gaelic, so it's not pronounced how it's spelt, because Gaelic doesn't work like that. However, in the last couple of days, a very nice woman called Rosalind, who is, I think she's head of sales for the company, got in touch with me. I sent them an email and I said, look, I'm going to be doing this video for Bheag. Is there any information that you want me to share? Anything that you could possibly provide that I can share with my viewers? And she came back and was really, really nice and gave me some information. And I went back to her and I said, look, how do you pronounce this? Because I've tried to guess and I've probably got it wrong. So it is pronounced Prapanalinia. That's how she's written it down. Prapanalinia. I wasn't even close. I wasn't expecting to be close, to be perfectly honest. But yes, Prapanalinia was a company set up in 1976 by a gentleman called Sir Ian Noble, and this is a picture of him now. It's actually Gaelic for the small illicit still on the sound of sleet. Now, sleet is S-E-S-E, S-L-E-A-T. I haven't even started drinking and I can't even speak. S-L-E-A-T, and it's actually a peninsula on the south of the Isle of Skye, which is here. Sir Ian Noble was actually the son of a British diplomat whose mother, and his mother was also Norwegian. But he was in a family, he's actually a baronet. It's basically a family of landowners, and he started off as a merchant banker, obviously wealthy family, landowners, ended up buying some land on Skye and essentially became incredibly immersed in the culture of the island. Wasn't a native Gaelic speaker, but was an incredibly enthusiastic learner of it and really picked up on the Gaelic language, the history of the island, and was just so passionate about the island and its people. Even though technically he wasn't a native of it, he essentially became one. He became immersed in them. He was very much an advocate of the Gaelic language and keeping it in Scotland. He was responsible for the erection of the first road signs in Gaelic in Scotland. He was the owner of the very first Gaelic checkbook that was launched. So, you know, he really was big on this, and it's almost like a marketing tool. You know, his claim was that whiskey in Gaelic tastes better if it's got Gaelic on the label. So Prapa na Líne was the company set up in 76 to produce Gaelic whiskies, essentially. So there are currently 3 versions. There is Poch Gu, which is means black pot or black still, which I will cover off in vatted malt, so I've technically already had that. There is Chévec, which means, now I've read this in 2 separate places. One said it was it small dram of the islands, because it's actually Chévec. I'm not even going to try. It's Nanailen, I think. Small dram of the islands, or small lady of the islands, which apparently there's actually you'll see there's a boat on the front label. This is what the full-size bottle looks like now, and it's the Chévec was actually the name of the company boat. It's either small dram or small lady, one or the other, and it's probably one of these where lady and dram sort of have the same type of connotation and meaning in Gaelic. Anyway, that sort of thing. So he died in 2010, but his contribution to the Isle of Skye is just immense. He sounds like an absolutely wonderful man in terms of what he took from the island, what he felt about it, and how passionate he was about it. So now Poch Gu is, I didn't mention the third one. So there's Poch Gu, there's Chévec, and there's also McNamara, which I think means son of the sea. Now, McNamara and Chévec are blended whiskies. Poch Gu is a vatted malt, and I think McNamara is like a lighter style of blended whiskey, whereas Chévec apparently uses malt whiskies that are between 5 and 11 years old. They're from Islay, Highlands, Speyside, and Islands, probably Skye. It would be a pretty safe bet to say it uses Talisker in it. It's quite a high malt content as well. It's 40% malt, which for a blended whiskey is, you know, a decent amount, to be perfectly honest. Now, I have had Chévec before, and when I was working at the whiskey shop, whenever we had it in, I used to sell loads of it because I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It was good for the price. At the time I was working there, you were looking at about 15 quid. You're looking at about 22, 23. Master of Malt have got it at just under 23 quid. So you might be able to find it for about 20 quid on deal somewhere, which with inflation and everything like that is a very, very fair price. But I used to sell a lot of it because it was unusual. It was great for a present to be able to say, you know, that they like blended whiskies, they like Bells and Grouse and etc, but they want something different, they want something unusual. It sort of compares with Black Bottle and Isle of Skye in that it has a slightly smoky element. Now, it did have a slightly smoky element, and I'm willing to bet it still has. This particular sample, you'll notice it wasn't full, was actually from my good friend Andrew A.P. Butler. Now, he had half of this and he's given me the other half, but I'm confident that this is still going to be as it should taste. But when I was selling it, it was very much it's evocative of the islands. It's got a high malt content and it has an influence. Remember, it had an influence of Talisker. So it wasn't full on smokiness, but it was a really good introduction to smoky whiskies. I'm hoping this is going to be the same. Now, it's a very deep colour. It really is quite deep. So it's entirely possible that it's had colouring added to it. But Gaelic Whisky, the Gaelic Whisky Company, and I think it's GaelicWhiskies.com is their website, they make a big deal of saying that they're unchill filtered. So if they're unchill filtering but they're adding colour, it seems a bit odd. So it's entirely possible that this hasn't had colour added to it. And if it hasn't, it's a very, very good colour. It's a nice, not quite burnt orange, it's got a slight ochre colour to it as well. But it's a really nice, good, healthy colour for a whiskey. Now, unchill filtered, if you don't know what unchill filtration is, if you don't know what chill filtration is, you can, if you produce whiskies, it has kind of like elements inside it. Once you've distilled it, matured it, it can have kind of like congeners and also elements in it of kind of its slight impurities. And if you were to put ice or cold water into a whiskey that hasn't been chill filtered, you'll get a slight haze to it, because what's happening is these impurities within the whiskey are actually slightly crystallizing in the cold. Now, what you do with chill filtration is you actually chill your spirit down to a certain level where everything crystallizes, and then you filter out that. So it's more cosmetic than anything else. It's basically so that if you put ice in your whiskey, you don't have that haze in. But there is an argument by some people, a bit like colouring. People don't like colouring added to in their whiskey. Other people really couldn't give a monkeys, and I tend to go that side because they're doing it, whether you like it or not, whether you think it affects the flavour. I'm not even going to get into that argument, but other people feel the same, or mainly the same people feel the same about chill filtration. People would rather it wasn't chill filtered, so it's at its natural state, it's at its purest. Other people, not really that bothered. Filter it, don't filter it, do what you want, because it's not like you're doing a filtered version and an unchill filtered version and giving me the choice and making me find out. So that's basically what chill filtration is, but it is a marketing tool used by some whiskey companies that's kind of aimed at more serious whiskey drinkers. The man on the street or the woman on the street that would come into the whiskey shop that drank whiskey but didn't really know an awful lot about it and was looking for something different, they'd glaze over once you started talking about, oh well, this one's not, this one is unchill filtered. So what does that mean? Some people would prefer to have it filtered because they think you're taking some of the crap out. So this is unchill filtered. Whether that's a big deal to you or not is entirely up to you. So nose does have a delicate smokiness to it, and it's a Talisker-esque smokiness to it. So it's a slightly bonfirey, slightly peppery smokiness to it. But there's a sweetness as well. There's a nice, rich, toffee-ish sweetness as well. It's a really good nose, and it's quite fresh. There's a mintiness to it as well, and it's a very fresh mint. It's kind of fresh garden mint, and almost, when you're extra strong mints, so when you're eating an extra strong mint and you sort of take a deep breath through your nose, and that really intense mintiness kind of goes through your nasal passages, it's got a little bit of that as well. It's quite a concentrated mint, as well as garden mint. It's a cracking nose. It's really, really good. %, tastes like it, very little burn, really nice mouthfeel, really silky, round, soft mouthfeel, but it fills the mouth. There's a really good smokiness on it, and it's a good balance of black pepper, there's a bit of sea salt, and there's a bit of bonfire. It's not too iodine, it's not too TCP, it's not particularly sour or sharp. It's very, very soft. And again, why I was selling it as a good introduction to smoky whiskies, because it's got those elements of smoke, but it's not too full on, and it's got a really nice fudgy caramel, and it's almost a salted caramel sweetness behind it. So it starts with smokiness, and then this salted caramel, quite a rich salted caramel, because the mouth feels so silky, just follows up and kind of envelops that smokiness and then brings it down the throat. Finish is not huge, but it's pleasant. It dies off a little bit quickly. Definite salted caramel. But there's just there's right on the tip of your tongue to start with, there's a really nice black pepper, and it's black peppercorns, like you've bitten down on one, right on the tip of your tongue. And then this barbecue smokiness comes through, which becomes sweeter and then turns into this salted caramel. It's a beautiful whiskey. I think it's great. I'm so glad it's as good as I remember it, because I knew I liked this. And I was hoping that it was going to be as good as I remember. And it is. I think it's brilliant. I think for the price, it's very, very good indeed. I think for something interesting, for a present for somebody that is looking for something slightly unusual but likes blended whiskies, as an introduction to smoky whiskies generally, whether it's your TCP side of smokiness or whether it's your sort of ashy bonfire, that's peppery smokiness, that sort of style. It's a really good all-round whiskey. And anybody that likes Islay whiskies and is just looking for something just a little bit easier drinking, almost like an everyday drinker, as it were, for an Islay whiskey drinker or a smoky, anybody that likes Talisker or Islay whiskies or anything like that, this is a really good kind of everyday drinker that you can just keep in your drinks cabinet and just have on a regular occasion, just when you just fancy a whiskey, rather than I want something, I'm going to sit down and after dinner I'm going to really enjoy something and savor this and everything like that. This is kind of your everyday drinker, and there is nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So Rosalind, thank you for your information. It was really, really helpful. And Chevek is still really good. It's still as good as I remember it. I think it's an absolutely cracking jam. So do check it out if you can find it. In terms of availability, I think there is some availability in America, but it is well worth checking out. There's a lovely sweetness. That salted caramel is really, really, really evident, and I bloody love salted caramel. So that's another one down. Very, very nice indeed. I shall do a quick rinse out and then we shall crack on with one more blend. See you at the next one. Cheers.